Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Files Obscura podcast. This episode is brought to you by the Anchor app. If you're like me and probably didn't know where to go to start a podcast or didn't know what to do, then you'll be very glad to hear that the Anchor app is free to download and gives you everything you need available on your phone or your laptop. And you'll be given all the tools you'll need to edit, to play music in the background, to have live guests record your episodes with you, and so much more. Anchor also allows you to distribute your podcast anywhere that you want to be heard, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and the list goes on. I know ourselves, so far, we have at least 7 platforms. And another great thing is that you're able to start making money for your podcast with absolutely no minimum listenership. So if you're interested in starting tomorrow, you can also start recording advertisements tomorrow if you were so interested. But everyone goes at their own pace. All you need to know is that this is everything you need to make a podcast and so much more to help you along the way. It's user-friendly and easy to figure out, as time goes on and you figure yourself out. So all you need to do is go download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Once again, that was anchor.fm to get started.
Hi everyone, I'm Crystal and I host the podcast Alternative Interests with my best friend Elle. We're Washington natives that love true crime, the supernatural, and all things weird, dark, and spooky. Join us every week as we take turns sharing our own twists on the garbage humans that commit crimes, or a paranormal story that we have been obsessing over. Whatever topic we cover, this show is sure to capture all of your alternative interests. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
From the initial, I should say, suspected impact point, having a lift car that can't get the light on to work. Seems to be some kind of mechanical problem. Let's send back another light. Meantime, we're going to take some readings at the gutter cutter and chase you out here a little bit, wait for another light on to come back in.
Hello and welcome back to Files Obscura. I'm your host, Aaron, and as always, we're joined by Vlad. Hello. And Cece.
Hi, guys.
You can go ahead and follow the episodes that you hear in all previous episodes on Twitter and Instagram, and you can go ahead and follow our Facebook page. You know what? This is one take. I don't care anymore. I've tried doing this. We're doing this. I don't care. You can go ahead and follow us on our Facebook page and get all of the notifications there about all of our uploads, on weekly uploads, and our YouTube page, where we're getting caught up every 2 episodes a week, so you guys can get caught up into the latest episodes. And you can enjoy us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcast, or where else you happen to listen to us. Go ahead and tell all of your friends about us, and we hope that we can entertain you today. We got a pretty interesting story today. One I've definitely had a couple sleepless nights over, as you can tell, because I butchered that intro not, more than once. But we're covering something in your neck of the woods, Cece. We're going to England today. We're going to be covering the Rendlesham Forest, the Rendlesham Forest UFO incidents. So, Vlad, I know you said you didn't have any knowledge about this. Cece, have you ever heard about this before?
Honestly, no. I look into England as places for cool things happen. Very boring.
Everyone likes to think about that in their home, but whenever you really start digging into some things, you realize a lot of stuff that you missed or maybe pushed off and never thought about again. I've definitely thought about that, here in Houston and in Pearland, where I grew up, which is a little smaller kind of suburban city just outside of Houston. And when I first heard of this Forest UFO incident, I was kind of surprised just because I had saved this in my a tab in my phone through Google. I saved this when we did episode 2 or 3, and I was like, this is going to be interesting because the first 2 sentences on Wikipedia I read at the time was the United States Air Force Base and the Royal Air Force Air Ministry or whatever.
The RAF.
Both witnessed both witnessed a UFO encounter, and then ... I was like, sold. Mm-hmm. Because that, 2 completely different countries on the opposite side of the Atlantic, both seeing the same thing,
first off, what situation are they involved in? Like, it's like my train of thought was like, okay, this could be something good.
Yeah.
And boy, was I surprised. This was one of those cases that earned itself the nickname of the British Roswell because of just how much information is out there. You know, there is just all kinds of competing stories and theories and people in the military who debunk this to this day, and then those who say that they were there and they witnessed this XYZ, you know, with all, you know, alien stories. There's always he said, she said sometimes, you know. But when you're dealing with military personnel, there's also that extra layer of like obligation to national security and you know, the suppression of information. You know, as much as I'm against it, I also understand under the right circumstances, I want to emphasize, I could see how it could be beneficial for a time. You know, so with that in mind, you know, I kind of dug in and really try to get some, you know, history and everything on that and tried to figure out, you know, kind of what's the truth and what was just kind of speculation.
All right.
You know, so as always, kind of tradition at this point, we do 2 truths and a lie. Are you ready, Cece?
I'm doing too badly over the past couple ones.
Yeah, I think you've won the last 2 or 3 in a row.
Last 2, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think it was the last 2.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean,
All right. I mean, I know you're a big UFO guy.
I like UFOs.
I know.
Space stuff.
Oh, yeah. So this was one of the 2 that I've had on my mind for a while that I wanted to talk about. I'm still going to save the other one for a future episode, so I'm going to keep that one to myself right now. But this was interesting because I didn't realize just how far of different topics would be filed into this story, you know. And to kind of set an example, let's go with our first statement. You know, in my research, you know, I like to follow the chain of command and everything, see who was involved, see how things kind of played out. And I found that, you know, Senator John McCain, while he was still alive, would actually personally get involved with one of these people who was affected by this UFO incident because he would receive, you know, radiation burns and stuff to that degree that affected him later on in life and stuff. John McCain would send letters to the VA and personally help this man out. This man was actually named John Burrow. And it's interesting because that's basically saying that the government acknowledges something happened. You know, so that's a kind of a key detail later on.
So the first one is John McCain
got involved and got the VA to financially compensate the soldier for injuries he sustained while in service.
Okay.
Did you get that, Cece?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So, second one, you know, the halt tape, which is the little bit of audio that you heard at the beginning of this episode, is actually often cited as undeniable proof that this whole incident was a hoax, despite everyone else's eyewitness accounts, despite everyone's, you know, discussion after, you know, their military career was over, whenever they were free to talk about things. The halt tape is often cited as that you know, the silver line, no, not silver line, it's weird. That little detail that sticks out too much, that, you know, tells you just something's not right. So, you know, it just pokes that hole in the UFO theory. You know, you know when those details just don't quite fit, right? And there's
when it's not quite perfect pieces of puzzle, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to find the right, you know, analogy or set of words to use there.
Okay. I don't know yet, but
it looks like you're already starting to think a bit.
Yeah, they both sound pretty legit, so
okay.
Give me the third one.
What about you, Stacey? What do you think?
They both sound plausible.
Okay.
So
I'm waiting for the third.
All right, the third. So as I stated, you know, in the beginning, you know, the details of the story, you know, really expanded different topics, you know, from, you know, political involvement with senators to Celtic mythology, actually, which kind of threw me out of left field. Because I found in this, you know, story that there was a location that was written in a binary code by one of the other individuals who claimed to witness the events, a man by the name of Jim Penniston. he would write down this binary code that he received in a journal. He would lose it for 30 years. And when it was translated, it would be a bunch of text. And one of these texts was a location, the longitudinal and latitudinal lines for a location called High Brazil, which is a mythical Celtic island set to appear only one day out of every 7 years just off the coast of Ireland. Roughly 320 kilometers, 200 miles, something like that. Which is completely out of left field, because there was a bunch of other locations that was marked that was places of high significance. Places like Egypt, the Egyptian pyramids, places like the Temple of Apollo in Greece, and other places like this, places of worship. So this was the kind of the sore thumb that stuck out. So that's part of the reason everyone, wants to dig in and ask, what does this mean? Stuff like that.
Okay. I think I know which one's the lie.
Okay. You think so?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the second one.
You think it's the second one?
Yeah, because the first one, John McCain, I honestly have never heard of this before, but for some reason, I just believe it. It sounds.
Well, you also got to remember, John McCain was a POW in the Vietnam War.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like I don't know, that just sounds right to me. It doesn't sound out of character for John McCain.
Okay.
So I just kind of, I don't know why I believe it. It's not completely ridiculous. It's at the same time, it's a little odd.
Yeah, but we're talking about UFOs.
Yeah. So anything's odd when it comes to UFOs. Why do I think the second one's a lie?
Yeah.
I guess because of how. Well,
sounds like you're second guessing yourself.
I kind of am, but I'm kind of not, because of the simple simplicity of, this is what people use, the silver lining. I'm I don't know, they all sound believable. They all sound incredible. So
really,
congratulations.
Okay.
I think all three of them sound equally believable,
okay,
despite how ridiculous or unridiculous it sounds. Because
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of out there.
It's a little out there, so I'm just gonna go ahead and say it's the second one.
You sure? Because I like to mess with y'all.
I know, that's why I think it's the second one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's hear your thoughts.
I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm genuinely quite stuck on this one. You've done it again, where I'm I can't tell which one's going to be.
Okay.
Why do I feel like the Celtic mythology one is the most believable out of the three, though? For me, at least. And the only reason
I don't know.
The only reason I'm saying it is because usually the way it goes with this stuff is the rock that eats people. I'm of course the Celtic.
The most obscure details are the ones that wind up being true.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it's the second one. I think this is one of those.
Yeah, I'll have to join you in that. Vlad.
Are you sure? Because I've been doing this for a while. Are you sure I haven't felt like it's time to just switch it up? Maybe I'm double bluffing you and you have no idea.
Right now.
I swear you always try and mess with my head.
What?
I'm really good at getting in people's heads.
It's the John McCain one sounds fake, but it also, if you told me it actually happened, I would believe you. So
it could be one of those
I
details that
by saying I don't know who John McCain is.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think CZ knows who John McCain is.
John McCain was a very well-known and, to some people, well-respected Republican. He tried to run for office in 2016, didn't he? Or was that 2012?
No. I think it was 2012.
It was 2012.
It was 2012, yeah. Was he running against Obama?
He was running against Obama. He was the Republican nominee then.
Yeah.
I can't remember how much he lost by.
Give me a second.
You're good. But, he died, 2015, 2016, something like that? He died
recently, right? Well,
he died halfway through Obama's campaign, didn't he?
He died 2018.
2018. Oh, yeah, my bad.
I knew it was
my bad. I was off.
Yeah.
Ooh, I thought he died during the.
I'm going to Wiki. I'm going to go down Wiki.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's just sad because I actually looked him up a little bit for this and I couldn't remember when he died.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the second one being a lie.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna seal you in.
Yep.
Cece, what about you? You're gonna say with the second one, or you're gonna change it up?
I don't know, dude. I don't know. You've got me on this one again.
You want to keep the streak going?
I do. I got like 2 in a row. I was so proud of myself. Mainly because you got me last time we did something strange and peculiar of the stone that eats people, like that was mentioned. That threw me right off, that one. So I'm going to stick on the second and be like, that makes somewhat sense. Be a lie. I know nothing about John McCain either. So I have no fuck all about the guy. So I'm just going to hope that I'm correct. Basically.
Yeah. Okay.
I will
Yeah,
be
pretty
very,
much.
I will be very surprised if the lie is the Celtic mythology bit, because that just
Yeah,
sounds
me
so
too.
ridiculous, and I want it to be true.
But you know how out there I have to go to research that just to get you guys?
I know.
It took a while.
I-
I had to find something interesting.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
So if that's the lie, then props.
Okay.
Bad at you.
All right, so you're staying with the second one then, right?
Yeah. Look.
All right, I'm going to put you into that. Are you guys ready? Let's begin.
Yep.
All right, so as we do, I looked into a little bit of, contextual information. So I decided to look into, the little area in Suffolk, England, where where the forest is located, and try to look at the history behind this, a little bit. To which most of this is dealing with, UFOs and the air bases. So I decided let's look into the U.S.'s involvement in England at this time and when they established air bases and why they were there. Because I was really surprised to hear that there was American air bases, in the 80s in England.
Yeah.
But understandably, they would be built there during World War II. The two that we're going to be talking about are going to be mentioned today, Bendwaters and Woodbridge, the Royal Air Force bases. They were located on opposing sides of the Rendlesham Forest. They were built in 1943, and Woodbridge would be constructed to accept distressed aircraft returning from Germany during World War II. Because they are the farthest east that you can go in England, so that way they would be the first places that you could fly to. So it just made sense. And there was like 2 other places. I believe one was in Essex, and I can't remember where the third one was, that were also, distressed places that you could fly to and land in an emergency or whatnot.
Yeah.
It would wind up being closed in 1948, 3 years after the end of World War II, and it would be put into a care and maintenance status. Basically not really being used. You have a couple personnel there just to make sure, it's clean and still operates. But for the most part, it's shut down. In early 1952, during the rising Cold War concerns, Woodbridge would be available to the United States Air Force and expanded to meet with NATO standards because they were allowing a more unified, what's the term I'm looking for? More unified force between all NATO allies, with rising concerns against, the USSR and communism as a whole as it was approaching across Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Bendwaters and Woodbridge would begin working jointly in 1958 and be known as the Twin Bases until the bases were closed in 1992, and full ownership would be returned to the UK's Ministry of Defence. During this time, while it was under, United States occupation, it would house this would actually wind up being a big scandal that came about in the 90s whenever, the Freedom of Information Act in the UK was used to get some information about Bendwaters and Woodbridge. Nuclear weapons were found to have been housed there during the Cold War in secret from the UK government at the time. Of course, it's no surprise, the U.S. government hiding shady shit in other countries.
Yeah.
Yep, it was.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Operated by the United States this time. So, England as a whole, has recorded witnesses of UFOs, which is something I didn't wholly discount, but I didn't think would be as big, because when I was looking into it, the only thing that came to my mind was like the stuff in the 90s with the crop circles that they were recording and everything. Famous ones that were appearing around Stonehenge during the 90s.
Yeah.
But I was looking into it because I was looking for anything that would link it, to the nuclear weapons that were found there, because there have been historical evidence of UFOs being found near nuclear sites and nuclear-powered countries. They've been found in Japan around nuclear, sites. They've definitely been found in the United States during, nuclear testing sites and nuclear reactors. XYZ. You found them in Russia. You find them in a lot of places. That happen often enough. So it may be a link, because there's been several sightings. I tried to see if there was any evidence of UFOs previously before this, but I couldn't really find anything that, prior to this one incident. So that's really kind of my own theory into thinking why, this could have happened, assuming it was UFOs.
Because of the nuclear.
Yeah, because of the nuclear weapons that were housed there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But like I said, England as a whole, has a lot of recorded witnesses who have seen UFO activity based on, written accounts. Mm-hmm. Some of these reports I found can be dated back as far as the 11th century, with almost regular reports being seen every decade, every 3 to 4 years since the 40s up until almost modern day. In the last kind of 15, 20 years, it's teetered off some more and it's not as prevalent.
I'm gonna say, I've not heard of anything recently of UFOs in Suffolk. Granted,
but for
it's
good
5 hours from where I used to live.
I'm sorry?
So maybe it's about 5 hours from where I used to live. Why? I'm not very close to it even now.
There's a lot of the locations are out in the middle of nowhere, and on only like specific days, which is common. You'll find details like that everywhere in a bunch of other, UFO stories.
Yeah.
Betty and Barney Hill, they were driving down the road at the middle of the night. Pascagoula incident, there was 4 guys fishing in a boat, bunch of incidences where people were, alone. So that's also why people get skeptical with it and say, was it really this? Because you also don't have corroborated witnesses.
Usually whenever people see aliens or UFOs, it's a small group of people. It's 4 or 5 people. I saw it up there in the sky in the middle of the forest.
Yeah, and
so it sounds like it's less likely to be true.
Yeah, right. And with some of these, like I said, during the 80s to the early 2000s, reports would spring up of the crop circles that people would take videos for newscasts and would show these grand and intricate designs that people would claim nobody could ever make these. Nobody ever could do it. It happened overnight. It had to have been aliens. People were throwing all kinds of speculation everywhere. Many would raise questions, would spark debate to skeptics about the legitimacy of UFO activities. Eventually, I know there was a team in the United States who proved that it could be done overnight. And, they showed the whole process, designing a whole unique geometric design and, scaling it out over a cornfield. And they did it in 4 or 5 hours with 7 to 8 people.
Huh.
Yeah. So, and they showed you their methods. And it was just wooden boards and rope. That was it, just so they can flatten it down, and they measured it out with lengths of rope, so they knew where they were going and how far they had to move. And these were.
I kind of want to see this.
These were students, and teachers and stuff.
It really wouldn't be that hard.
But then there's evidence such as the microwave radiation and stuff like that you got to consider too, which is not found in every crop circle, but is found in some crop circles.
Very odd.
It is proven, I've seen some videos of people proving that you can fake that, but it's not easy. So it still raises that question of, is it not real? For me, I think it's a good, solid answer to disprove it, but I still want to believe, because there's all kinds of stuff out there in the world.
You know what? Let's say it is real. If it were real, I kind of get the feeling about 80% of them are fake.
Yeah.
And the other 20% are real.
Yeah. It only takes that one
it's nice
story
idea for it to be real.
Say, wait. I think personally, I think they're real. But I think they only really want to be seen on their own terms. So every time we witnessed things, unless it was something described as an accident, or like they actually crashed or something like we saw or claimed in Roswell, I don't think they would be seen unless they wanted our attention, or even if it was just to fuck with us 'cause we're assholes. I don't know.
Again, as a huge skeptic, I would like things to be real, and I would like to believe the crop circles are things that can happen. But they just seem a bit too convenient, personally.
Just a bit.
Yeah, I also don't know what the point behind a crop circle would be.
To send a message.
I've always thought it'd be a
So we
landing
can
site or
read.
something.
Well, just wait till we get more into the story, because you're gonna see something that makes you say, "What?"
Okay, all right. You got my interest.
Okay.
I'm
So-
curious.
So, we're gonna get to the dates involved. December 26th to the 28th, 1980. On the 26th, between the hours 2 and 3 a.m., John Burroughs was on security patrol with his partner when they would witness a bright, odd light coming from the forest. Another security patrol would also confirm the lights later on. The light would be seen descending into the forest, and in early speculation, people would suggest, it was possibly not an aircraft. It gave off orange and yellow glow to it, so people thought maybe it was on fire, maybe they need help. So they were going to their superior to try to get, approval to go send out an emergency response team to go help them, and go investigate the crash sites. They would be granted permission, and Burroughs would be part of the search team that was sent. But at the time, you also got to keep in mind, they were sent without their weapons because they were technically on foreign soil at that point, and they were out of American jurisdiction. So they would not be allowed to carry their weapons in case this was an enemy craft or something like that.
Okay.
So, these men are going to be a little shaken up just on the off chance. But again, the whole situation was eerie to investigate. Burroughs noted that near the direction of a farmhouse that was close by, there was a lot of animals that were being agitated and set into a frenzy. The team would also receive a radio transmission that Heathrow Tower in London had reported seeing an object over Woodbridge before disappearing. At one point, Jim Peniston, who was a highly reported and respected, I say reported, I need to write better in my notes, and trusted airman with a vast knowledge of global Air Force capabilities. He knew his planes, like a sports dad with his cars. He claims that he had gotten close enough to observe and touch this triangular-shaped craft of unknown origin. He noted how well lit it was with the black metallic shell that he said almost looked like a fabric. It was highly reflective and opaque. He would also note a series of glyphs etched into its side, and when he touched it, Jim claims to have experienced a download of sorts of binary numbers that he would write into a notebook before inevitably forgetting about it. When I watched a live interview of him and his explanation of what happened, he said that when he touched it, it was like a flash of bright light. And then he was overwhelmed with the visuals and understanding of this binary sequence of numbers. And so he was clear enough to remember the sequence of numbers, so he felt he could write it down, which he did. And when he did, he claimed that it alleviated a lot of the frustration that was building up because of it. And then eventually it was no longer overwhelming, and he forgot the code after he wrote it down. So he says. Burroughs, he would later go on to report his findings to his superior after following the craft for almost 2 hours as it would move away upon approach. Every time he would get closer, it would levitate off the ground about 6 feet in the air and back up, and before it would land again. He would be told to return with local police later on and collect any evidence that could be found, and so he did. The official police report would contradict Burroughs' account in many ways. On the first time out, police searched for the strange lights, but only made note of the Offord Nest lighthouse. which is located further in the direction of the sighting, past the farmhouse where the Burroughs first noted seeing the animals agitated and everything. Later that day, during daybreak, Burroughs would search the area again and found evidence of broken branches and scorch marks and impressions on the ground that formed an equilateral triangle when measured out. Later testing on trees in the area showed notable spikes in radiation, but when local police were called back out, they failed to explain the broken tree branches and the radiation and claimed the indentations on the ground were made by burrowing animals. Now, the one thing you got to keep in mind at this time is that this is winter. This isn't. The ground is cold and hard.
So what are all the animals be hibernating?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, in England, we don't really get sun about in winter. I'm sure you'll see the odd animal that shouldn't be out and about. Like sometimes you get a rabbit.
Yeah.
Very, very most. But they don't tend to burrow in the ground. I mean, England doesn't freeze over for sure. No, we don't get that at all. But the ground is cold and hard enough to be a pain in the ass to try and dig through.
Oh yeah, exactly, and you know that's true almost anywhere that can get that cold, you know. So when you know other independent people would later go on to measure the indentations, you know, they would say it equated to roughly the size of a craft that weighed about 1.5 tons. But I don't have the dimensions written out, but the triangular shaped craft was not that big. It was about half the size of a sedan, you know, or a little bit bigger than that. Which, for 1.5 tons, I mean, that seems almost a little light for a craft that can hover on its own. Then again, with UFOs, we don't know what technology they use.
we don't know how much it weighs. I mean,
You know, exactly. But either way, this would contradict what the police would write in the reports. With everything going on with the police that were involved, you know, despite what, you know, they were saying early on, a couple nights would pass after they would go tell their deputy lieutenant, the deputy base commander at the time. He would eventually come to witness his own events, and it would be recorded on what's now known as the Halt tape. The deputy base commander, Colonel Halt, he would record his UFO incident in the forest 2 days later on the 28th. Halt had been known as a by-the-books kind of old-fashioned commander. He had heard of the rumors circulating around the base, and he decided he wanted to put a stop to it when the servicemen would claim that the UFO returned after the previous encounters. He was the type of person who felt that the sooner you address this, the sooner you can move on from it. You know, because again, he didn't believe this was to be true. He was a very high-ranking officer on a foreign, you know, U.S. military base, and on an Allies base too, you know, in NATO. So it's a lot of things could happen if this wound up being true. So
he didn't want to cut. He didn't want it to spiral out of control.
well, yeah, obviously, but at the same time, this is the last person you'd want to actually witness a UFO event.
Yeah.
A high-ranking official on a top-secret military base, illegally housing nuclear missiles at one point. Couldn't find exactly what point that was, but still.
Yeah.
It's not ideal. Yeah.
You can see a lot of things are going wrong. But when Halt would go around and, you know, do his daily reports, he made a habit to use his recorder, which is why he had his recorder with him. He found it an invaluable tool to conduct his business and to make sure everything was good, as he kept a record of all the daily activities. This would prove indispensable in you know, helping aid the theory of the UFOs, you know, and the incident that came out, because the official report that he would later give would contradict what was found on the tape. He had made, like I said, he had made a habit of using the tape recorder, and when it started, like you heard in the beginning, he was originally out there in the woods looking at a bunch of storm lights that were going on and off repeatedly. He had sent men out to go repair them. They would temporarily be fixed, but then other lights would go out, and so he would go out and investigate it himself. This was whenever they were also investigating the site that they found originally and testing the radiation samples. The part that we had clicked out was right when you can hear the Geiger counter going off, checking for the radiation. When that happened,
he would spot he and his team would spot a strange light, going off in the background. It started out as a white light, and then it turned blue, and then red, and it would oscillate in colors. And it would just be off in the distance. And it would hover and change in the same direction of the farm. But he would note that it was eerily quiet. Nothing made a sound, not even the UFO, no animals nearby. The only sounds that were coming out was his voice and, the wind. And eventually this craft would split into 5 parts, 5 white lights, and then disappear into the night sky. And all of this dialogue was recorded on a 24-minute long, tape, which he would hand over to his superiors, and they would review the tape and everything. But like I said, this is the last person you want in the world to have a UFO encounter. He is a high-ranking official. A lot of shit could go wrong if he publicly says he saw a UFO.
Yeah.
It would put a lot of doubt in the U.S. military, a lot of doubt in the joint trust between him and NATO and the UK at the time. It would be a massive change as the U.S. government acknowledged the UFO incident. It would change a lot, So you can recognize the fallout. And I wanted to bring that up early on just because for me, when I look into these cases and everybody asks, how come the military doesn't do this, that, or the other? This is one of those cases where a lot of the information I got came from a book written by a man named Nick Pope, who was a part of the Ministry of Defense for some time and became an author writing about the Rendlesham Forest incident, and personally interviewed everyone who had witnessed the event, including the people I've described so far, Pedersen and Holt included. And they both gave accounts where they said that they were forced into a situation where they had to agree with what these people were saying, and they wanted, a good military career, which I can understand, so I can understand why they kept quiet until they were retired. And Pedersen, he would even go on to make a statement claiming, like I said, that he never even got close to within 50 feet of the craft. Whereas in his everything that he says now, he touched the damn thing and got, that weird download in his brain of random digits.
So the question is, what really happened?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which one's the right story?
Because time is also kind of your enemy here, because they would almost each go on to like 30 years before they finally came out and told, what they said was the truth and everything. So that does play into a bit of doubt. It's just, I can understand the reasons that were provided, but at the same time, it's also 30 years is enough time to say, I'm bored, let's come up with something fun. I was part of this big thing, why not just go with it now?
Yeah, let's go on tour.
I actually don't believe that that's the case, but I think it's helping to be a skeptic, because they're just everything I've read in the live the live interviews, that's the word I'm looking for, that I witnessed, I just don't get the impression that they would do something like that. They seemed like people who were really honest, straightforward men. Like, it would take a considerable effort for them to lie and hold on to a lie. Like, they just seemed that straight-laced, which, I mean, I get they were in the military for a considerable amount of time, it's just strange how things would unfold from this point out, because, like I said, the position is in the Air Force and the nature of the events, it just was not a good image moving forwards, where Pedersen, he was comment how he wanted to preserve his military career, and he had like this 3-4 page account that he gave to his officials, and whenever they reviewed it, they returned this like itty-bitty paragraph that was just generic jargon for him to read. And in his words, he said that when he asked, what's this, the guy that was there at the time, he said, you want this to go away? And he says, yeah. He's like, well, then you're going to read this. And there was no if, ands, or but about it. And so I can understand in that situation, you're going to want to kind of go with what the dude in charge is saying.
Yeah.
And yeah, you don't want a hectic life in the military. You don't want to be the kook,
So I can understand the motives, you know. Halt, you know, he was the reluctant witness from the beginning. Like I said, after he attempted to squash the rumors, you know, because he, from the first incident, you know, he didn't witness it himself, but he heard the rumors from the base and thought it was distracting and wasting people's time. But 30 years would pass, and then they would come out with their own reports. They would be in the books mentioned after they were interviewed by Nick Pope, which is a fantastic read. I found it an invaluable tool because there was a lot of eyewitness accounts that I wanted to get in that I just couldn't, you know, try to decipher, and I wanted to just stick with the main facts because this goes all over the place.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Some things that I found out as time would pass is that John Burrow and Jim Penniston, they would both suffer from PTSD at this time. And like I said, even Burrow would get aid from the VA for the injuries he suffered related to this at the time because of what John McCain did. He would send letters to the VA claiming that you need to help a man who was injured in the line of duty or I'll do it myself, you know.
So this means
Yep.
Celtic. That was a lie.
No.
What?
You guys were right.
Oh, really?
Did you guys just skip over that?
Wait.
Yeah, no, the Halt tape proved because he gave a 24-minute dialogue explaining everything he witnessed.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, I got a little confused. I thought because I thought we were there was the
Three in a
recording.
row.
And then there's the account later on, and you mentioned that.
You're good.
Yeah. All right.
It's okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you guys were right.
Okay.
I really wanted to throw you guys off.
Yeah.
I tried so hard. Oh, God. Yeah,
Ah!
yeah, you're good. You got 3 in a row. But, like I said, you know, Burrow had received these, you know, and in the official report with even British reports with the Royal Air Force claiming that the events that they witnessed that affected the soldiers that were there, the injuries that they suffered, they related to unexplained aerial phenomena or UAPs. That's how it was written in the official reports. So when they go and have these eyewitness accounts go on stage and publicly deny what they saw, how do you go and backtrack and then get people to compensate them for something that you say didn't happen? Do you see the flaw in the logic there?
Yeah. It doesn't quite work out.
Yeah, it doesn't sit right. You know, get your story straight. You know, it just, like I said, it's one of those pieces that don't fit. But then there's other things that don't fit. Like I said, in 2010, Halt would actually go on and he would sign a notarized affidavit, which, you know, he would reaffirm his events of the incident like he originally told his superiors, along with claims of others who corroborated his account that he gathered over the years. He claimed Bentwater's radar operators saw an object, you know, fly across their 60-mile scope in a matter of seconds. If supposedly came back across and stopped near the water tower located between the two before going towards the forest in the direction where Colonel Halt was at the time whenever he gave his recorded accounts. He went on to explain that the Wattisham, that in Wattisham, I think that's how you say that. I'm getting really stumped out of this word. Cece, can you help me out? It's Wattisham. I feel like an idiot.
I think you're saying it correctly.
Wattisham? Okay. I thought I was saying it wrong for the longest time.
I think sounds right, Wattisham.
Okay. In Wattisham, they reportedly picked up a bogey that they would catch on the radar for just a brief moment before they lost it heading towards the Rendlesham Forest. So you got 3 different radar operators, each confirming they saw something at the time that Halt said he saw something.
Interesting.
All headed in the direction where Halt was. Yeah, so you got a lot of other things that are popping up that are saying, no, something happened.
The fact that each one of these eyewitnesses connects to the other one just makes it's so fascinating.
Yeah, but again,
Makes
this
it
is
hard.
after 30 years.
It makes it hard to sleep with several. Hey, no.
Yeah, but again, 30 years is a long time for your memory to get wonky. 30 years is a long time for you to get bored, like I was saying earlier. I'm one of those people where I know when I'm 60, 70 years old, I'm really going to want to mess with people, and I'm going to get crafty. I'm going to tell stories, I'm going to pull pranks, and I don't care because I'm 70. I mean, I just know that, So I don't see it as impossible for something of this exaggeration being possible, or if there's another valid reason of something could happen. But again, it's not impossible for this all to be seared into your mind. You witnessed something unexplainable. You have all these people who remembered this because it made it into the news. It was international. It was an international sensation for a while. You have all these people asking you questions. What happened? And you got to give the same, boring report, but in your head, you still question, what do you see? It just, I'm torn. The skeptic and the believer in me are torn.
It kind of makes sense for it to be just someone messing around or telling a tall tale.
Yeah, I can see that happening. But again, like I said, the skeptic and the believer in me are really going back and forth right now. And a lot of this has to do with Tennyson.
It can't be true.
Yeah. But, a lot of this kind of breaks down with me when it comes to Tennyson. But it has to do with this notebook, which we're going to get to here in a minute. But after his career was over, he, like I said, he would give his official statements about the events, and he would occasionally do an interview here and there. He wasn't the type to gain attention from this. He didn't write books on it or nothing like that. He didn't want to seek attention from this. Nick Pope got to know him very well, and he said for like every interview he gave, there was 99 he turned down or something like that. And, for somebody who likes to be that private, and that straightforward, you kind of want to take their word a little more seriously. Because he didn't seem senile or anything. He didn't seem, aloof in his interview. He seemed very, coherent, and he understood what was going on. And the details, like he even said, he tried to be skeptical in the details he gave. And these were the things I was picking up on when reading his accounts, which is interesting because he was on that search team on that initial night, and he's the one who claims to touch it. So assuming he touched it, assuming he was there, and we go with everything else that he said was true, you kind of got to wonder what those numbers mean. It's hard to explain just because it's so out there. The binary code that he wrote down in his journal, like I said, was gone for 30 years or so because it was one of those things he didn't really care to pay much attention to. So what he did is, when he started giving interviews out after his military career was over, he would take the notebooks and he would show it to people, the sigils and the signs that he found etched onto the side of the UFO. And when people would start to ask, hey, what's that binary code that you got going on there? He was like, oh, I don't know. I really don't.
I just wrote it.
Exactly. He was like, it was just kind of something that was there. It's like, oh, or he, as he would say, that was the download, that he received. So they got in touch with the appropriate people in time, and they wrote, and they got the binary code translated. And when it did, it's just weird. So I don't know how else to kind of lead up to it. So let's just get into what it says briefly. It starts with a few short little sentences which state, the first one, exploration of humanity. Continuous for planetary advance, eyes for our eyes, origin year 8100. That's it. That's the only sentence. After this is a set of coordinates that locate to, very specific locations around the world that were popular and important centers for people. And like you guys know already, one of these locations was High Brazil, the mythical Celtic island just off, Ireland, that was said to be the home of a magician that lived alone in a stone castle, and big black rabbits roamed the island. It's really kind of out there story, but really interesting nonetheless.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that. Weird.
Yeah.
sounds like-
The interesting thing about this is that it actually appeared on maps, for over 500 years. Yeah, like people just treated it as true, and a lot of this would due to people going out and claiming that they found the damn thing, which is interesting because I tried going onto Google Maps and looking at the geo coordinates, and I looked anywhere else around Ireland, just off the coast, within that span, and I couldn't find anything that looked like what was once an island or something like that. I couldn't find anything that suggested a place, that remotely fit this description underwater. But I decided to dig in a little bit because it wouldn't have, assuming this was true, it wouldn't have been listed for nothing. So I, itched my curiosity itch. And I looked into a bit of the history behind it. Like I said, it was only supposed to be available or to be seen, to be visible, one day in 7 years. So says the legend. But there would be accounts of people who not only witnessed it, but they would land on the island supposedly, and they would interact with people and the land there for the day that the island was available. I found a story in the 1600s where there was a sailor who took his family out to go see the island that was said to be covered by mist. They were out there long enough, as the story goes, that they were able to watch the island appear and then disappear back into the mist. Yes. Another tale that I found. Yep. Another town that I found was in 1674. There was a Scottish sea captain. I don't know why I said that so weird. A Scottish sea captain named John Nisbet. He claimed to spot the island on his way to Ireland from France, where he said that he sent 4 men to the island and they spent the day there. And the men claimed to have found a strange old man that gave them gold and silver. And Nisbet even claimed that the island had been covered with massive black rabbits and a wizard who lived alone in the stone castle. So
you kind of wonder what they might have been on, though.
Yeah, it's a bit much, but that's where the legend, where come from this man's report. So again, you have historical tales of people exaggerating their finds because they went to lands that nobody else is ever going to go to. They went to places that you're never going to see, so they can say whatever story they want, and you have no way to disprove them. So it's not impossible to say it's just hyperbole of the most extreme, or just outright lies, because there are some places that exist kind of like islands near, just off of Ireland, but they're too small to be, a habitable place. Penniston himself, when asked about the craft and his opinion of it, he did not believe. He said that he didn't think it was extraterrestrial. He didn't think it was aliens or nothing like that, which is interesting because his answer was not what I expected. His answer was that he believed they were extra-dimensional beings, that they were humans, but they were able to tap into the extra dimension and affect time, and were able to send a message from the future. Because remember, one of the things was origin year 8100.
I was gonna say also the fact that it's in English. It translated to English, right?
Yeah, but they also used binary, which we use in our computers.
Okay.
Is a common enough understood, code that we can use it and easily translate it into anything.
Okay. So I'm actually not a pro when it comes to binary.
It's okay, neither am I.
But so it's its own separate language from English, right? Or is it? Or does it translate to English? Like,
well, it's a code because you can set a series of set binary numbers to mean a certain thing, and from there you just stack those next to each other, and you can make sentences and whatnot, and write whatever code you want that way. And that code is universal. We know what each set means.
I don't know why, but interdimensional beings does not sound all that far off. I mean, we're already talking about aliens and crop circles and wizards and black rabbits. So at this point, like, that's not that crazy.
That's
Like,
true. We've talked about some pretty far out there things.
yeah. So like, if you're telling me like people from the future.
We have talked about some strange things before, so it's not completely far off from what we've discussed so far on this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the other thing that comes to mind when I think things are strange was the spiritual scientists from the Lead Masks episode. The people who made the machine that went boom and all that stuff, they claim to hear frequencies and communications from Mars. Just crazy people, man. That was a left turn I was not expecting. And this was, like I said, a left turn I was not expecting to find this. Yeah. I kind of expected the whole political chain thing going on. I did not expect health ornithology.
I mean, honestly, though, whenever you do the research, you always seem to find obscure pieces.
Yeah, I try. I really do. So, well, like I was saying, Pennison, he believed that this was humans communicating from the past, which was interesting to me because that sounded like something that was in the realm of possibility, theoretically speaking, for science. So I looked around and I found somebody by the name of Professor Robert Mallet, a theoretical physicist studying time, and he posited that, in theory at least, with a sufficiently advanced enough human race, you would be able to send a message to the past or the future. And due to the nature of quantum physics and superpositions, you can send these in a very short, quick, compact message of binary code. And this would be the most efficient way to do so, he theorized. And because we already use binary code as, a universal language already in computers, it would be pretty easy for humans to understand at any point in time, assuming you are trying to connect with people who have understood what the binary code is.
Hasn't it recently been proven, though, that time travel isn't possible simply because time is too linear?
There was something that was in question about that, but it was really something that affects time on a large scale, and it resulted with large gravitational bodies. But when dealing with, quantum mechanics, I'm not entirely sure how much that would play into effect with large-scale time. But I am not a theoretical physicist, so don't ask me. I'm not even close to qualified.
None of us
are. I like scary stories.
Yeah.
That's all it is. But that's pretty much all that was going on with, details trying to explain the story. But as always, there's going to be those who like to point out, inconsistencies and flaws and whatnot. And for me, one of the biggest things that makes me kind of want to doubt Pennison was inconsistencies found in his journal. Because there were times that he supposedly written, to have happened around the time that he had touched the aircraft. But it did not line up with the official events when people were stationed to go out. Like, it was written to be there at midnight, but the patrols weren't even out there till 2, 3 in the morning. So it's details like that where it's just too much is like off to be coherent or to kind of write off. Because it depends on which way you want to interpret this. Because one says that he didn't accurately write the times, the other one would completely discredit the existence of the journal altogether. So you would have to take these things with a grain of salt. Again, you have 30 years passing with the journal. Who's to say he didn't, after all these years, add those binary codes to the journal? By this point, the computer,
you would like to hope he didn't.
Common thing to have. Yeah, so it's not impossible for him to want to get creative with any of this. And so it's like questions like these really make me think, with how people give accounts and stuff. Because, it's impossible to be able to take someone's account 100% just because too many variables can affect your judgment, can affect your memory, XYZ. But those aren't the only things that have really been bugging people when it comes to trying to explain what happened. Like I said, there's been many people over the years, especially many military officials, who still to this day deny the existence of what happened. They would often claim that they would have like men in the area who did not witness any such thing. So if assuming that is true, you got, Holt and you got Peniston and you got Burroughs, who are basically being called liars. But then you got the existence of the Holt tape where, you have Holt for almost half an hour explaining what he's seeing, and you can hear other people on the team explaining what they're seeing too. And it's just going back and forth, and it's hard to understand, what to accept. So then you have, astronomers and people of the sort that are looking at the scientific details instead of, trying to play investigator. And they're looking at the things like what could they have seen, like the lights. They said they constantly were flashing colors between blues and whites and yellows and reds. And, some explanations was the lighthouse I was talking about. But other explanations are stars being low enough on the horizon, being, some part of some illusion. Or a mirage kind of event, that would make them seem brighter and glow at a weird consistency. A lot of people like to believe the lighthouse
possible theory. In England, the stars one.
Yeah, this is what the United Kingdom's official report like to say, because they corroborated with the United States Air Force to give out their official statements. So
would it be impossible because of air pollution?
Nope, because the specific location was chosen to be built at the time because of its remoteness and its lack of fog in the area, allowing for clear skies. So
correctly with Suffolk. Suffolk is quite countryside filled. So that's very unlikely. I mean, I ride by a motorway and even not enough to cause weird effects for the stars.
Yeah, you have, the port, but the port was far enough away that it had no effect on what was going on here either. Yeah. And the only other Air Force base that was involved was also experiencing this event and did not have a way to explain it. And then there's others, even as far as London reporting seeing, something going on in this area.
I feel like there's definitely something.
Oh yeah,
it's just ignoring individual eyewitnesses.
Well, that's what a lot of people would try to explain. And one theory, a theory that actually irritates me because of how stupid it is. A lot of people like to throw out the idea that the SAS were actually involved. The reason people say they were involved is some sort of prank to get back at the United States Air Force. The problem is when I looked into it, I couldn't find for any reason they would, be mad or, feel like they would need to throw a prank on this U.S. Air Force base. I do not understand why that is the, what is thrown out. But the theory goes they, parachuted in black clothing and black parachutes. They would feel black helium balloons and remote operated kites, to send off all the radar and really confuse everyone involved. And that they would get flares of different colors of magnitude to really mess with the lights in the area. And just
that's convoluted enough.
It is.
I was going to say that's convoluted enough to be like the plot of a Scooby-Doo episode.
It's so stupid and out there. And for a prank, that is an expensive and an extremely coordinated
that would be a
effort.
Prank. Would get a lot of people in trouble.
Oh yes, without a doubt.
Like, who would even spend that much money just to be like, haha, you thought you saw an alien? Like, come on.
Risk being kicked out of the RAF for a prank like that.
Yeah, but this story only started circulating in mass, around 2018. So that's another thing that you need to keep into account. This is a fairly recent theory. So why it's gaining traction, I have no idea. But in this climate of stupid we're all under, I also am not surprised.
Yeah.
And,
from what we've got now.
Of course, you know. And as a whole, that's most of the details that I could find related to the case. However, there's two more interesting tidbits of detail that I found. I found rumors online of a story in the area of a man who would be contracted to go out to the area. He was one of those cable service, you know, repair guys, you know, who helped with, you know, TV services and internet, you know, connection issues and everything. He would go out, you know, with one of because these companies, you know, would rent some of these areas out in Bentwaters because it's owned by the Ministry of Defense, and they lease out these buildings towards private companies and individuals. So the story goes that this man was contracted by one of these companies to go out and do some maintenance on their internet wire. And he would dig just 2 feet into the ground when he would uncover these cables that date back to the 80s, but were on a size and scale completely unseen today. The story goes that the amount of internet that was being pushed through these cables rivals anything that exists, you know, even now, even with our fiber optic cables. You know, with him supposedly saying that he knew that the government, you know, kept the best stuff for themselves and kept things a secret, but the size of this thing is beyond ridiculous. You know, and many people, you know, claiming that his friends, you know, would see him, he'd be like white as a ghost and stuff like that. But I couldn't find anything, you know, pointing specifically to the person's name or anything like that. So nothing concrete there.
Yeah, I'm guessing it was a handful of salt.
Yeah, just a little bit. But it was interesting to see that because in 2015, you know, there would be a video that would circulate for a brief period of time that would, and it's about 30 seconds long. It would show these blue lights that were flashing in the clouds next to a helicopter that was flying in the forest. And these blue lights matched eerily similar to the descriptions given off and, you know, the flash and the color of what, you know, Colonel Holt was talking about. And again, being found in the forest with you know, nuclear missiles once being housed there and everything, with the history of, you know, kind of UFO mania associated with the area. I can see how it's possible, and I tried to see if the video was, you know, edited in any way. I personally didn't see anything, but I'm also not a video expert. But
you are really?
Yeah.
I kind of want to give this a look, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's crazy, you know, with everything that was related to the case. I firmly think at the end of the day, I believe what happened, but I believe there might be just something more to the story that we just won't ever find out. Just because there are some. Yes.
I like to believe it. It sounds interesting. Doesn't seem quite right. There's something about it that just doesn't quite seem believable.
Yeah, just a little bit off, right? Like there's some detail, some puzzle piece that doesn't quite fit, you know?
Yeah.
And so it makes you wonder. But what do you think, Vlad? You know?
I think it's from everything I'm hearing, it honestly doesn't sound too different from a lot of UFO cases we've heard about before.
Oh yeah, you know, a lot of similar hallmarks too. You know, colors, hovering. Yeah.
Which
the metallic shape,
which like is both beneficial towards, like, if you want to debate that this is actually happening or that it's a hoax, because everybody knows what a UFO looks like. So this isn't new, this isn't different. This fits what, you know, what we've seen before, what we've heard about.
Yeah, but again, you got details that I haven't really seen anywhere else. Like when you got Pedersen talking about how we got a download of binary code. It's just so out there. You don't hear that in other stories. Like I've heard of a lot of stories of people having amnesia, of people losing track of time, of people finding little metallic bits found in their body. I've heard these stories. It's common. It's repetitive, and these are the signs that we use to track this. but you don't hear of people getting a download from touching a UFO craft
Like,
that looked like a metallic fabric, by the way, that it just looked off on all kinds of levels.
I don't know. Like, it's fascinating because if it's a hoax, it's very creative. It is extremely creative.
But then you also have two separate governments that have to agree, they have to come to a consensus on how they're going to approach this too. So if it is a hoax, who's going to look like the asshole? But if you're willing to call it a hoax, then why is that the preferable answer? Because again, the government's been known to do shady shit before.
All right.
So
on the whole debate of whether UFOs or aliens exist, probably. I just think it's possible. Now, whether this particular case is legit, I'm kind of split.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm a little 50-50.
Okay.
Because I don't know, something about you're right, CC. It does sound a little off. It sounds a little bit strange. The binary code.
A little not right.
That's so weird.
Yeah, but again, I like how because when I researched this and I watched the interviews of Holt and Pedersen, they really came off as genuine. They didn't struggle to try to tell the story or anything. They didn't have any doubts necessarily on a lot of key important details. They were very open to being skeptical and being careful about the things that they said. They were open and honest about when they gave their personal opinion. They were critical of themselves, and those are the people I tend to trust more. So when you got these well-respected high officers of the U.S. Army on foreign soil saying this, I'm inclined to listen to them more, because they without a doubt saw something. They without a doubt experienced something. But what happened, I have no idea.
Yeah, I think something happened.
Something definitely happened.
Something was there. It's not. I can't just believe that nothing happened. Everybody made it up. Obviously something happened.
Of course.
Whether it's aliens or whatever, we don't know.
But so as a whole, I personally, believe, like I said, something happened. What happened? I'm intrigued by Pedersen's assessment, where he believes it's that interdimensional future human message, because there is a basis in scientific evidence that it, in theory, could at least happen. So when people always ask, what proof is there? What proof is there there's aliens? Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be aliens, but this at least has something leaning towards it more, And for me, that's enough to definitely at least agree something happened for sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to say
it
aliens.
seems a bit of a convenient answer, personally. It seems like a convenient answer of, yes. But
yeah, because aliens are a joke at this point, especially after the History Channel really just kind of fell down and just ancient aliens just shoved up in our face all the time. God, I hate that show. It's just we're oversaturated with it at this point. So aliens are a quick and easy answer for everyone, because there is a more or less common consensus that there's something out there.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, people, anytime something happens, it's just easy to just slap that label on there, not do any critical thinking, and then people argue over it all the time.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous.
I mean, how many times is it's like, oh, weird radio signals, it's probably the aliens talking to us, or I don't know, there's a weird noise coming out of the Antarctica. It's aliens, obviously.
Well, of course.
Yeah. What else could it be?
Don't know, but it's fascinating just to see these tales that do really make you scratch your head. These tales that really make you think, what if? Because there's other cases of stories that you'll read about people, and you're going to be pretty yes or no about it.
Yeah. You're
going to be like, no, 100% happened. You can't convince me otherwise. Or, nope, no, I don't agree with that. I don't believe you. I have this, and this contradicts you. It didn't happen. This is one of those stories where you got a lot of evidence pointing in this direction. but you've got a lot of official people who deny it. But in any situation, they'd have to deny it. So it's kind of, it doesn't answer the question, you know? So
And
it's
I mean,
really,
again, what seem like doesn't quite add up. Doesn't seem quite right. There's something that's just missing.
yeah. But like I said, this is Britain's Roswell. This is the most well-documented UFO case in all of Europe, you know? And it's just baffling, you know, that it also still somehow affects the United States at the end of the day. You know, that blows my mind. But it's
Doesn't surprise me. You guys like to get into the business of UK a lot.
we meddle in a lot of things.
That's true. Pleasing the world and everything.
Oh yeah. But with that in mind, it's just strange. And there's other stories I found along the way through researching that were equally strange and equally worth the dive. But that's pretty much it for our time on this topic today. You know, I'm really glad you guys got it right with the 2 truths and a lie. I really wanted you guys to change your answer. I really wanted you guys to change your answer, but you didn't.
That was really
so
close.
I got to work harder next time. I really do. You know.
Oh, not. I know. I'm going to break my streak now. I've got 3 go. I want to get at least 5 in a streak. That's my aim.
Okay. If you can get to 5, I don't know. I'll think of something to do for you, because I want to see how low I can keep y'all's streaks. I really want to try to stump you guys. Like I said, I'm going back on the episodes. I'm on like episode 6 or 7 right now. I'm keeping tallies of how many y'all got right and how many y'all got wrong. So when I'm done with that, I'll go ahead and we'll post about it, and we'll keep track of who's got what.
When did we start doing 2 truths and a lie?
We did it from episode 1.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, it's always been a thing.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
So
I enjoy it. It makes this far more fun.
Oh yeah, it's just
I'm competitive. I love it.
It makes you pay attention, you know, because you want to know.
Yeah.
But like I said, I wanted to do something a little different. Going to England was definitely a nice change of pace. Because I've got a few other stories that I want to dive into. There's a really strange one in India that I found a while back that I wanted to look into, but of course I don't speak Hindi, so it's hard to do research on it.
I have an Indian friend who may be able to help. I would have to say he lives in Flame.
But aside from that, there's a few, you know, other kind of more grand topics that we like to do once in a while.
Yeah.
That I have on the plate, which we're going to do one next episode. We're going to be talking about a bunch of future technologies, and we're going to give our speculations.
That's going to be fun.
About the future evolve and everything like that with, you know, advancing technologies and how it's going to affect society as a whole. I'm looking into everything from like solid state batteries to advancing AI, and we're just looking at, you know, better aerosol gels that we use for just everything, how the car industry is going to change. It's going to be a fun topic.
Yeah, but you know, I'm going
to
laser focus onto the games industry because so far.
Oh, I know, and I hope you do, because understanding, especially, you know, how UIs affect everybody, you know, and UIs being developed in games, you know, they really help you focus and understand everything that you need to pay attention to. How that's going to change when we go into a virtual riddled world where, you know, you're only halfway in society if you're not plugged in, you know, and so understanding how we mold this going forwards, how we design this world going forwards, is really going to help us understand ourselves and what we want and what we value moving forwards. But like I said, that's
a topic for me.
Yeah,
I want to add some stuff to that.
Yeah, but that's definitely a subject I want to save in for the future, because it dives into a lot of concepts I personally enjoy in science fiction, such as cyberpunk and stuff like that.
I guess we could think of it as like a sequel to a...
Five fun, dude.
Oh, absolutely. So we got discussions, set forward.
Yeah.
With us working on getting all of our episodes out on YouTube and trying to get our weekly episodes out, which I know today's episode was late.
We've been
Again,
bad. Yesterday's last week's was a bit late as well.
Yeah, but it was still out on Tuesday. We weren't even able to get this episode out on Tuesday, and it's just I have personally just been behind my personal responsibilities, paying bills, getting to work. I'm trying to get a new job. I'm really short on time right now, but I'm trying to remedy that. I've got, like I said, a few ideas already ahead, so we can see how we'll move forwards with these next few episodes. They've been stuff I've kind of been reading in my free time whenever I'm not focused on, work per se or writing scripts. So hopefully I'll be able to get through them a bit quicker.
Obviously, we've all been a bit busy at the moment as well.
Yeah, everything. It's that time of year where everyone's, getting out of the summer, blues. We're focusing on school, getting back to work.
Obviously, I'm in my first
holidays are gonna.
I'm getting used to being an adult now. Like you two know what you're doing. I'm in the water. Well, I say that I'm throwing myself in head first, and everything goes well. So it's been very weird for the past 3 or 4 days for me.
Well, there's no right way of doing it. So
Nah, not in this climate.
No.
There's not. But with everything going on, we still want to try to, to get these episodes out ahead of time. I know we have a few fun ideas that are planned for down the line that we're also trying to make time for. Luckily, they're far enough ahead. I think we're going to be fine, just as long as we stay on top of our own schedules. We'll be back on track. I know we're definitely going to get next week's episode available in no time. So hopefully moving forwards, you guys have been enjoying, all the content you've been listening to. You guys have been telling your friends about it. Let them know you can find them on YouTube. Just make it easy, and they have time to get caught up. With everything going out, please let us know if there's anything that we can do to help, and make your experience more enjoyable, if you would. I personally know I like the genuine feel, but I've been wanting to do a more scripted episodes in the future to kind of play with our style and everything.
That'd be nice.
And stuff like that. And trust me, when I listen to podcasts, I like people who are a little more scripted, a little more formal to the point. But at the same time, I feel that it stumps good conversation. I'm sorry, Cece?
No, I like the ramble.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't know if any of you do. Where they ramble.
Yeah.
Conversation almost so fun.
Yeah, and me personally, like I said, like I'm with you with people rambling and going off on some things, on whatever tangents they're talking about. I enjoy the conversation. I enjoy the energy and the back and forth that people can get into. I enjoy the debates. I like it when people, get emotional about these things they're talking about. I like the passion. So it's been a battle of what do I want? Do I want something that feels more genuine, or do I want something that feels more, information packed? Because there's value in both, and I want to experiment with that a bit. But as things go, yeah, I've been enjoying it too. But I think somewhere in the middle might be ideal for us.
Yeah.
So we're tweaking things here and there. I'm trying to get back on a more regular sleep cycle, so I'm not always tired, because I know it's been coming out the past month or so. It's just a lot going on here in the United States. It's not an understatement at all.
All over the world, it's a
without a doubt.
Yeah.
But with that being said, it's about time we go. It's been fun. I had a lot of time researching this. I had a lot of time trying to stump you guys. I really wanted to. But overall, it was a fun story. And, I'm glad I got to share this with you. Cece, how do you feel, learning something new about your neck of the woods?
There's a lot I don't. Obviously, where I grew up, most.
Yeah.
The stuff from England. No, it seems like we have any. Spend way too much time on the internet looking at.
Okay. Well, it's at the same time, it's like I can't expect you to, expect the same thing of me. I don't know jack shit about Idaho, because I'm from Texas.
Yeah.
So I can't expect you to necessarily, know the same thing about, other counties and other areas in England. But I just figured it might be interesting, to learn a few things, a few interesting stories that we pick up along the way. Because, like I said, especially with the crop circles, there's all kinds of video footage that I was able to find, on YouTube and news articles that dated years ago. Old, local news stations and international ones on NBC, CBS, just all reporting on it from helicopters, interviewing people on the ground. Like there's fun little rabbit holes that you always find. It's like a fractal, if you would.
Yeah.
You go down this one story, you find 12 different, links that lead you to other rabbit holes that could be its own thing. And it's a fun dive, but at the same time, it's like you got to know when to tell yourself, no, we got to get back on track, And it leads to all kinds of interesting things that I find that I have no room for on the podcast.
I know.
So I always have to go back and like when I'm writing my notes, like writing by hand, like this notebook is filled with scribbles and scratch outs and stuff. It's like, no, that's not relevant and stuff like that. But it's like it's interesting, and it's like this is what my end goal that I want for people. I want people to be like, yeah, let's read this. Let's see what we find. Who knows what we're going to find today? I want people to experience that joy when we talk about these things. So hopefully when we discuss next week's episode, the future technology episode, hopefully we can get, really creative, really out there and see, what we all think about the future. I think it's going to be a fun episode and I can't wait to see you guys there.
I agree.
That being said, we're going to go ahead and sign off. We hope you guys have a wonderful week, and we'll be back to our regular episodes on Tuesday starting next week. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.